Hi everyone. I want to talk to you guys about a New York Times bestseller book and something that changed my life when I was working with teams, especially in management. It was Tribal Leadership. It was a book by Dave Logan, John King, and Haley Fisher Wright that came out a few years ago and really hit the market. And importantly, kind of labeled and leveled methodologies of working with the negative Nancy, the person that a human resources loves to call the one who stymies groups and communications and teams. There's 5 stages in this tribal leadership idea, and if you think about the term tribal itself, it goes back to tribes where we all have banded and joined together through centuries. You see this today still with the Yanomamo tribe. And they have this leadership complexity that happens, and you always have the negative Nancy idea. I like to kind of rephrase it. I say the hostile stage, there's 5 stages. The sarcastic stage, the hoarder stage, the transition where we become great, and the externalization stage. They have a little bit different names, but I've grown to kind of adapt this personally when I'm talking with students and other members of my community itself when we have problems. The first stage, the hostile stage, is that professional stage where you get people that come in and they have fear. And every time we're in a group, we have fear. We don't know who is better or who is weaker. So we have this fear and this agnostic type of personality we all kind of go through personally. It's sparingly hostile. We're looking for ways to create internal scandals in our teams to make ourselves feel better or look better. We steal time if we need to because we're still in a transitional mode of trying to adapt to other people and let them know our strengths and weaknesses. And this is one of the reasons why I asked you guys to always do a SWOT analysis. What are your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats? Share them with your team. Be open. This is the first stage of eliminating those communications problems so people can be open and free and say, hey, let me mentor from you. This is my weakness, or I'd really like to take this threat that I have, move it into an opportunity area, get it into a weakness, and then eventually into a strength. The negative Nancy's are just terrible. They think that everything's terrible. They don't want to communicate. They don't care in a lot of essences, and they're the ones that hold back communication. Everything's a problem. Everything is your problem. They don't want to accept it. When you have this, team members have to look at the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats charts and try to find a way to include the person, to move them into an understanding that they're being the negative Nancy and they've got to change without being so direct. It's a way of empowering them by empowering yourselves. You get into that second stage and they become sarcastic. And you'll see these remarks quickly. It's a way to identify it. It kind of takes over the workplace. This is 25% of workplaces and tribes. You see them as agnostic, very sarcastic. They stick out like a sore thumb. Members are resistant to change. If anyone comes up with a new communication model, a new method, a new way to try, especially we see these in the games we play today. Classrooms when you have the joint effort teams, a person sticks out. They fight internal change and management ideas. If someone becomes the appointed leader, they attack them at all times. They're only incentive and courage. What's it going to mean for me? You hear that a lot. Why would I do this? They start moving into that Nancy observers type of stages where they're still Nancy's, but they don't want to share. They're hoarders. One of the largest problems in communication and organization issues is information hoarding. We've all heard of the idea of silos, the old grain silo type of visual idea, to where teams and internal communication systems break down and they become these vacuums, these silos, to where only information is shared. They are usually top down, which is the worst type of sharing. 49% of the workplaces in the United States are in these situations. It's the hardest to break. They become hoarding groups of knowledge because knowledge is seen as power. They try to outwork or outthink their competitors. Individual basis happens in this structure as you go up and down the level. Instead of CEOs working to communicate everything with their teams, they hoard that information to keep themselves powerful. They think they're the best and the brightest. They become the teacher's pets. They need to feel important. This creates a strong ability to really lack listening emphatically. And as teams, you should listen to each other emphatically. Let everybody have a turn to speak, because you never know when the best idea is going to come out, or something that's going to spark a new innovation or idea yourselves. This is what you're trying to move to, this transition, as I call it, the work rate, to where everybody has equal opportunity and everybody's emphatically listening to each other, and you're starting to have these sparks everywhere. It's a fantastic stage. The tribe members are all excited. You're all excited. Everybody's just communicating and sharing. You're using that SWOT analysis to the most effective ranges. You're seeking internal benefits for everybody. Say, hey, you know what? I really have a great idea. This is going to benefit you better in your internal sub-team. The entire company or the team is considered. You're seeking what I love to talk about as Covey's habits and ideas of the 7 habits of highly effective people becomes a highly effective team. The highly effective team number 1 idea and concept should be a win-win solution. You should be listening to everybody's solutions to make sure you pick and choose the best solution, so it's a win for everybody on the team and everybody's on board. If there's any division, it's released to human resources, and we've seen that before. And I end up being human resources a lot of time for students. And these are the first things I talk about in the stages to find out where you are and whether you're creating win-win solutions. You're being proactive. You know, in essence, we're firing the negative Nancys at that time if they can't get on board. It happens in real life. Individual has to be discarded for the team. The ultimate is when you get to this externalizing greatness, where you take everybody's idea, you win for the team, you win internally, and then you start sharing information externally. In competition measures, you don't do that so much, but when you have internal teams with other parts of the organization working together, this is the greatest aspect. There's really only 2% of organizations in the world that really fit this model. Surprising. You know, the tribes become motivators. They're seen as winners from every other department, but they start looking for global wins. The idea everybody wins, externalizing their information and knowledge. They don't hoard it, but they share it to get more information to make themselves even greater. These external conflicts are just not even conflicts anymore, but they're actual correspondences for help and aid and learning and growing. They become internal and external consultants of knowledge. They create a sharing culture, a community of developing, and a community of new theories. From all the external information you bring in, you start coming up with your own grounded theories yourself to share and teach. This mentoring is great. One of the groups I love in communities organization is Zappos. If you've ever learned anything about Tony Hsieh's, you know, he kind of has this theory of delivering happiness. He started a company by selling pizza on his campus with a friend. The guy would come down the hill, he'd buy a pizza a day, and he asked, well, why do you buy a pizza every day? And he says, well, I really don't want to work and I need time to study. I found out that students don't want to walk down the hill to get pizza, but they all want it. So I'll buy 1 pizza a day, I'll walk back up the hill, and I'll sell it for $1.50 a slice. I make enough money to survive, buy my books. They get a service, they won. Hsieh said, what would I do to get you to buy more pizza? Created a reward system. For every 10 pizzas, the guy got a free pizza. And then he started buying 2 pizzas a night because it's become so popular because he can make so much more profit. 10 became 20. Hsieh got involved. They started their own business of delivering pizzas. From this, he took this tribal culture and he came up with the idea of organizing communities over profit. He created Link Exchange, ended up selling for $265 million to Microsoft. And he sold the company not because he wanted to sell it to make money, because he couldn't stand the culture anymore. Everybody was fighting. Nobody worried about anything but profit. Nobody worried about anything. They didn't have a family atmosphere. It was everything he hated, and he couldn't stand his own company. That's what he got into Zappos. He said, if I'm doing this, I'm doing it right. He created 500 community members to where their job was to not talk to each other, not talk to customers, but to listen emphatically to each other. They were to find internal solutions and find external solutions. If you call into Zappos and you want to talk about how you don't like your neighbor, they'll listen. They're there to listen. And if they can sell you shoes in the process, great. If they don't have your favorite pink size 10 shoes, they're to look on the internet and help you find them and recommend where you can get them. If you do buy something, they create a culture of family by upgrading your shipping to the next day automatically and paying for it. It's a thanking culture. They send you a letter, thank you, and inside a return receipt for 365 days worth of care. If you don't like them in that period, send them back. And as Shay said, some people just can't make decisions. So you give them that 365 days so they're happy. They're in your family. I love this piece. It's a little bit long. I want you to listen to a couple of them, of Shay's 10 rules that he finds extremely important. Take a minute here and listen.
He's an American internet entrepreneur and venture capitalist. He's the CEO of the online shoe and clothing store Zappos. Prior to joining Zappos, he co-founded Link Exchange, which he sold to Microsoft for $265 million. He's Tony Hsieh, and here are his top 10 rules for success. The great companies had a vision that had a higher purpose, beyond just money or profits or being number one in the market. And kind of the irony there is that by not making profits the number one priority of the company or the higher purpose of the company, it actually enabled these companies to generate more profits in the long term. So sometimes when I speak at entrepreneur conferences, I get asked, what's a good market to go into where it can make a lot of money? And my response to them is, instead of thinking about where you can make a lot of money, think about what are you so passionate about doing that you'd be happy doing it for 10 years, even if you never made a dime, and that's what you should be doing. And kind of the ironic thing is the money will actually follow. So we've all heard of Craigslist. He didn't set out to make money. He was passionate about the community, and now it's one of the top trafficked websites on the internet. So I like to say chase the vision, not the money. There was a movie that came out I think a couple years ago called Notorious. I think it only lasted a week in the movie theater, but I saw it. And in it, Biggie Smalls, also known as Notorious B.I.G., Puff Daddy says to Biggie Smalls, don't chase the paper, chase the dream.
I just wanted an excuse to
put this picture up here. Yeah.
Anyways,
so if you're an entrepreneur, think about what would you be so passionate about doing that you'd be happy doing it for 10 years, even if you never made a dime from it. And if you have employees, think about what's the larger vision and greater purpose in the work, beyond just money or profits or being number one in a market.
Company culture was always important, and myself and Fred interviewed everyone when we were still in San Francisco, basically until we couldn't do that anymore because there were too many employees to interview. But basically, we had this criteria of interview for the normal business technical stuff, but
at the bar,
right? So do the normal set of interviews, but then you kind of had this final test of like, is this someone I would choose to hang out with or grab a drink with? And if the answer was, if we weren't in business together, if the answer was no, then we wouldn't hire them.
So that goes against a lot of the things that I've heard out there in the past. It's like keep your work and personal relationships separate. Like that's kind of been like a thing that's been stated out there. Like there should be this firewall between the two. But you went in and said, okay, it's very important that I can actually get along with this person. This is someone I can go out and have a beer with.
Why was that so important?
Why was that so important to you?
I guess I have two answers to that.
One is, yes, there are companies that focus on work-life separation or work-life balance, and at Zappos we really focus on work-life integration, and at the end of the day, it's just life. So especially if you spend so much time at work, like you better hopefully enjoy the time that you're spending there and the people that you're with. So that's one answer, and then the other answer is.
And I don't think
the book existed at the time Zappos was founded, but Jim Collins, his book good to great, researched and looked at what separated the great companies in terms of long-term financial performance from just the good ones or mediocre ones, and found that the great ones had two important ingredients that separated them from just the good ones or mediocre ones, and one of them was that they all had strong cultures. We formalized the definition of our culture into, we have 10 core values at Zappos, and one of the actually really interesting things I found from the research was that it actually doesn't matter what your values are. What matters is that you have them and that you align the organization around them. And the power actually comes from the alignment, not from the actual values. So there's no judgment of values. And so we're not out there telling people, oh, you should adopt the Zappos values and culture and so on, because actually that would probably not work in most cases. Where our message is more, you should figure out what your values are, and then align the entire organization.
So our whole philosophy is, let's take most of the money that we would have spent on paid advertising or paid marketing, and rather than buy our exposure, instead, let's invest it into customer service and the customer experience, and let our customers do the marketing for us through word of mouth. On any given day, about 75% of our orders are from repeat customers, and we basically grew from no sales in 1999 to in 2008 was the first year where we hit $1 billion in gross merchandise sales. And actually, even despite the bad economy, we've actually continued to grow over the last 2 years. In fact, our net sales for Q1 this year were up almost 50% year over year. And people ask us, what did we do differently over this last 24 months? And it's actually, we actually didn't do anything differently, and it's not because of anything we did over the past 2 years. It's because of all the investment we made prior to that we continue to grow because of the loyalty of our customers. And the number one driver of all that growth is through repeat customers and word of mouth.
I would say probably the biggest thing is it's just patience, and I don't mean patience as in terms of just sitting around and hoping something miraculous will happen, but really when you're making decisions for your business, thinking long term, thinking about what is actually going to make a difference 10 years from now, and what's actually going to make a difference 2 or 3 years from now. But I think most people get stuck in what's going to make a difference this week or this quarter or even this year, and when you think longer term, the decisions you make end up being very different. And so things like culture, for example, if your culture, if someone goes downhill tomorrow or something improves tomorrow, you're not going to see the effects this quarter or this year even in terms of your bottom line. But 2 or 3 years down the road you will. And same thing with customer service. If we hypothetically stopped answering our phones and fired everyone in our call center, that would actually have a huge gain in our profits for 2009. I don't think it would hurt our top line revenue. We'd still do over $1 billion in gross sales, but 2 or 3 years from now, then we'd start feeling the effect. So I think the biggest thing is just how long term are you thinking?
I always like doing these thought experiments, and so one way to think about it is if money were no issue, if you had infinite money, what would you do? Or the counter to it is if everything was free, or if this one thing was free, then what would you do differently? And so I think that can help spark the initial ideas, and then once you kind of have the crazy out there idea, then you work backwards and make it more into reality. For example, a lot of startup tech companies have problems hiring tech talent. So what if there's a line out the door of amazing engineers, then what would you do differently? And then that might shift the thinking into, okay, how do we get a line out the door of really talented engineers and make that the problem, the real problem that you're trying to tackle? Or actually, it's back to Zappos history. In the early days, we had trouble hiring people that were really good buyers and good at merchandising. Initially, the problem was framed as,
how do we go and recruit more talented buyers, but then we reframed it as, well, how do we, the only way we can guarantee kind of an endless supply of talented buyers is if we basically grow and train them ourselves. And so now we have a program where we hire people that are entry level, and within 3 to 5 years they have the potential to become a senior leader within the company. You talk to managers and tell them you should be spending 10 to 20% of your time outside the office with your team. Initially, the response from some of them are, well, is that really working? We're just hanging out. And then we ask the managers that have done it, how much more productive is your team, because there's better communication and higher levels of trust, and people are willing to do favors for each other because they're doing favors for friends, not for just a coworker. And in terms of increased productivity, the answers range from anywhere from 20% to 100%. So kind of worst case scenario, you break even. I mean, we were fresh out of school, just didn't know what we were doing, and I think
I'd say one of the lessons
that actually
you would think
we'd learned the first time, but
kind of repeats
itself throughout history is
actually just not having enough
self-confidence. Right? Like thinking, if we hire this external person that has this great resume, then they'll be great. And it feels weird, but they must know more than we do. And I think one of the lessons we learned through Link Exchange was actually, if you're one of the co-founders, you probably know more about the business than someone that's just coming in from the outside. But we were young at the time, and
one of our interview questions
is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how weird are you? And
if you're a 1,
you might be a little bit too straight-laced for the Zappos culture. 10, maybe a little bit too psychotic for us. But it's not so much the number that we care about. It's how they answer, because our belief is that everyone is a little weird somehow, and this is really more just a fun way of saying that we really recognize and celebrate each person's individuality, and we want their true personalities to come out and shine in the workplace. There's so many people where they're a different person at home on weekends versus when they're inside the office, and people in corporate America leave a little bit of themselves, or in a lot of cases, a big part of themselves at home. And we really strive to create an environment where people are just comfortable being themselves. So instead of worrying about work-life separation, it's about work-life integration, where it's just the same person. And not only are you comfortable being yourself, but when you connect with your coworkers, it's not just coworker relationships, but true friendships that end up forming, where you would choose to hang out with these people even if you weren't working at the same company together. So these are some of the questions that we ask ourselves in terms of thinking about how to deliver great customer service. And we internally use the word wow when thinking about how we should treat customers, but we use it as a verb. We talk about how do we wow our customers, and also how do we wow our employees and the vendors that we work with. And it starts with the policies you see on our website. We offer free shipping both ways, so a lot of people will order 10 different pairs of shoes, try them on in the comfort of their living room with 10 different outfits, and then send back the ones that don't fit or they don't like, and we encourage that type of behavior. We have a 365-day return policy for people that I guess have trouble committing or making up their minds, and they can take a while to return products. And most websites, it's very hard to find contact information. Usually it's buried 5 links deep, and maybe it's an email address you can only email once. Whereas for us, we take the exact opposite approach. We put our 1-800 number on the top of every single page of our website, because we actually want to talk to our customers. And it's funny because sometimes I'll be speaking at a branding or marketing conference, and there's a lot of discussion about consumers being bombarded with thousands and thousands of marketing messages every day. How do you get your message to stand out? How do you get your brand to stand out? And should they be investing millions of dollars in this 30-second Super Bowl ad that people may or may not be paying attention to, or should they be leveraging the latest in the social media fad? And for us, as kind of low-tech and unsexy as it may sound, we found that the telephone is actually one of the best branding devices out there, because we have the customer's undivided attention for 5 to 10 minutes, and if we get the interaction right, we find that the customers remember that for a very long time and tell their friends and family about us. And we run our call center very differently from most call centers. We don't have scripts. We don't have the concept of average handle time, which most call centers have, which is all about how quickly quickly can you get the customer off the phone in the name of being more efficient. But we're not trying to maximize for efficiency. We're trying to maximize for the customer experience. And we don't upsell. And so going back to the no call time, I actually just got an email last night. A new record was set for the longest phone call ever. It was 8 hours and 3 minutes long. So
I don't know how the bathroom
situation works out for that one. But so
and it may seem weird
that for us, we're an internet company. 95% of our sales go through the website. So why do we focus so much on the telephone? And what we found is actually, on average, almost every customer calls us at least once, sometime during their lifetime. And it's actually usually not to place an order. Most of our phone calls do not result in orders. It might be their first time going through the returns process, and they just need help stepping through the process of printing out the return label for the first time. Or maybe they have a wedding over the weekend and they just want some fashion advice. And I think we have some customers that call us because they're lonely, and we'll talk to them as well. So
that's our call center.
And then for our warehouse, we actually run it very differently from most warehouses as well. Most warehouses, they let the orders pile up so that when the picker needs to walk around, there's higher picking density, more efficient, doesn't need to walk as far. For us, we run our warehouse 24/7, which is not the most efficient way to run a warehouse. But we're not trying to maximize for efficiency, and because we run it 24/7, and because our warehouse is located in Kentucky, right next to the UPS hub, and because we do these surprise upgrades to overnight shipping for most of our repeat loyal customers, when you combine all three of those things, a lot of customers order as late as midnight Eastern time, and the shoes show up on their doorstep 8 hours later when they're expecting it a week later. And that creates that whole emotional response we're trying to elicit in that wow experience that causes them to remember us for a very long time and tell their friends and family about us.
The ultimate definition of success is you could lose everything that you have and truly be okay with it. Your happiness isn't based on external factors.
So I really like that 10 kind of frames that he has, and the last one, just be happy, because you never know. Ed Hoffman created LinkedIn on this same type of concept of tribal knowledge, basing on creating new friendships and relationships and group culture, becoming your own self-evolving groups and internal groups, and developing greatness internally. So that's another great place to think about. Look at that design of how effective it's been internationally now. A global, external program that's actually connecting people. And essentially, while you do your LinkedIn update, you are creating a SWOT analysis for everyone else. It's very interesting. So our goal here is really communication and making sure that we're using stages and identifying where we are internally and team members and helping them. All right, gang, have a great week. Get out there, ride a bike, do something different. Enjoy life. Go to the library. Go to the gym. Walk your dog. Have a little bit of fun this week, too. Everything's not academics and work.